episode of Researcher Revealed. Today, we have with us the Associate Professor of Personalised Care from the University of Southampton, Lindsey Cherry. She's a podiatrist, and she's joined us today to share her experiences and her thoughts all around mentorship. Have a listen. Hope you enjoy. Hello, and welcome back to the Researcher Revealed podcast. Today on the podcast, we have Associate Professor Lindsey Cherry from the University of Southampton, who's joining us to share her insights around mentorship. Lindsey,
Hi.
tell us who you are and why research?
Oh gosh. So I'm Lindsey Cherry. Everyone calls me Linz or Lindsay. I'm a podiatrist by background, and I've worked in the UK for nearly 20 years now as a podiatrist and academic, trying really hard to get good at research and blend that with clinical practice along the way.
Very cool. I can't wait to dive into this with you. But before we get started, on my podcast, we start every episode with a little bit of fun, just trying to get to know you a little bit better so the researchers can kind of see a little bit of who you are and how you work.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Okay.
All right. Are you a Windows or Mac?
Oh, Windows. Haven't got
right.
a clue how to work a Mac.
Me either. Tea or coffee?
Oh, coffee.
Oh, okay. When you write, music or silence?
Oh, music.
Ooh, what kind?
I love country music. But generally any kind of noise.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. And where do you tend to work?
All over the place. I like moving around and I like being in different places. I like busy places.
Oh, yeah. Controversial. Noise and a busy space.
Yeah.
Interesting. What time of day are you most productive?
About 10 o'clock at night.
So this is really pushing you out of your comfort zone.
This is stretching me right now.
We're recording this in the morning for everybody out there who doesn't know. And what is your favorite referencing manager?
I use EndNote, but that is because I'm a complete technophobe. So I've learned how to use it. I know how to do that. And the idea of battling different software fills me with fear.
Fair enough. I've recently started to try and learn Zotero.
Good luck. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure it's very good for any Zotero people out there.
And what is your favorite data visualization tool?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Okay.
No. How do you make your figures?
I don't know. I have very smart people that help me.
I love it. So your data visualization tool is people. I love it.
Yeah. The other people who are really good at that can.
I love it. That's perfect.
That. You've got the gist already that I'm very, very bad at technology.
Favorite desk snack?
Oh, anything sugary. I live off caffeine and sugar, I would say. I love a Kit Kat chunky.
Ooh.
For any students listening out there.
And when or if you do things like plan, organize, journal, are you, I'm going to guess the answer to this question, but I've still got to ask it. Are you a digital or analog?
I am there with my pen and paper, and I have my hard copy written diary and my hard copy little list book, and I carry both of those around with me everywhere I go.
Me too. Actually, I do a combination, but I'm a pen and paper girl.
I mean, I do try, but I think that's the thing of having multiple roles across multiple organizations. That's my reason, and I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, me too, 100%. Okay, what book are you currently reading?
I am reading a book called, I was just looking up for it, This Child of Mine, by an author called Emma Claire Wilson.
Okay.
And it's an absolute tearjerker.
Oh.
It's just a really lovely work of fiction, and absolute disclaimer, Emma Clare is a long-term friend of mine, and I'm so proud of her for writing and publishing her novel. So absolutely shout out to Emma, and encourage everyone to read her novel because it's brilliant.
So in the description of this episode, we'll put the name of the book and her name so that other people can link and find it. So we'll sort that out.
Cool.
And then last question is it doesn't matter whether they're alive or dead, a researcher who you admire.
Oh gosh. There are so many. There is so many. I absolutely, so close to home, there's a researcher called Professor Cathy Bowen.
Oh,
and I think she is absolutely awesome, and is somebody who's kind of quietly brilliant, but actually when you look at what she's achieved through her career, it's astonishing. So absolutely admire her. And then there's another lady in the UK called Professor Anne-Marie Keenan.
Okay.
Who is just a brilliant example of female leadership in research. So check her out, folks.
I will definitely do that.
Yeah.
That's all of my questions. I told you it'd be fun. Everybody gets really nervous because I think they think I'm going to ask like something really deeply personal. But like the whole aim of this podcast is to get to know the person who's behind the research, because reading those papers can sometimes feel a bit cold. And in my role as a nurse researcher myself, having the opportunity to get to talk to people like yourselves, I love hearing the stories that go behind those people, and it gives me such a better appreciation for why they're researching what they're researching, the methods that they use, who they're collaborating with. So that's why we do it, and it's also fun.
Yeah.
So why not?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So let's launch right into it. You've already given away a couple of things. So one, you work at the university.
Yeah.
Two, you're clinical academic. So that blend of clinical work and academic work. And you're also a podiatrist.
Yeah.
So what I like to hear, because I'm fascinated by this, is how did you get into research? Because I'm imagining, and call me crazy here, but I've not heard of a lot of podiatrists who do research. So how did you come to the dark side?
Yeah, I know there really are not, there's not a lot of podiatrists anyway, but even fewer, I suppose, actively involved in research. And I came to podiatry as a second degree, so that's the first thing. And I didn't think that I was very academic. And if I could have done podiatry without going to university, I would have. Because I thought, it's just not the place for me. I don't fit in there. I'm not really smart enough. But I had to go and do this degree. And I was just really lucky that when I went and studied podiatry, there were some brilliant lecturers who just gave me a bit of a nudge and a bit of confidence and said, maybe, Lindsay, you could do this. And when I finished my undergrad degree, there was this internship scheme that was running for podiatrists, and it was quite small at the time. So Cathy Bowen and Professor Tony Redmond, who's based up in Leeds, and then some others were running this scheme, and it literally was at kind of 12 weeks in the summer between when you graduate and when you start your job, so that you could just go and be introduced to research in their different units. And honestly, I kind of thought, I'm not really sure about it, but there's a gap between when I finish and when I can start work. So maybe I'll give it a go. So even then I was a bit on the fence. But, as soon as I did this internship, it was like, oh my gosh, this is what research is. Wow. And it was a whole new world. And I was just absolutely in awe of the people I met. And that unlocked unlocked the door, and it started from there.
Okay, so I'm guessing then those lecturers, Kathy Bowen, the other professor who found you, for lack of a better word to say, were they then, like, was it just casual conversations? Like, was it mentorship? Was it coaching? Like, how did that relationship start that inspired you to be brave enough to go for this internship and this thing that for you're like, dude, I can't spell my name. I'm not smart enough, which is all lies, by the way, because you're here 20 years later. So
well, we're hanging in there. So I do you know, so I didn't recognize it as mentorship at the time, but looking back, I can say that was my first real experience of what mentorship was and could be. And it was people, so the internship was structured, but actually it was more personal than that. You know, there were two of us who were interns in these units, and it meant that all of a sudden there was a relationship with these really awesome people who then it felt like they genuinely took an interest in us and supported us, and gave me that real personal advice and guidance and kind of inspiration. And it was, the internship ended, but I mean, maybe I'm just that annoying student, you know, but I kind of kept in touch, you know, but I'd like to think that was okay and welcomed. And that mattered, because then I understood, no, I want to do this. Okay, how do I do this? And then through their advice and guidance and what I now see as mentorship, they were able to, through light touch, through ad hoc kind of communications, but on that frequency that I needed it, I was able to, I went and did some years in clinical practice, but alongside that, did some papers that went to conference and still did a bit of work. So I was building my CV so that then when I was ready to apply for the next thing, I had that academic team around me. I had the right things on my CV and a bit of luck, you know, the wind blowing in the right direction. But without that early mentorship, there's no way I'd be here as a researcher today. Absolutely instrumental.
So with that in mind, you kept saying in describing what your experience was like, how you've come to see mentorship. So for everybody out there, because this is a debate that goes on and on and on about what mentorship is versus coaching and whatnot, would you share with us your personal definition of mentorship and how you feel that differs from coaching?
Yeah, sure. So for me, mentorship is about a one-to-one relationship with somebody who has some lived experience or expertise in the arena that you wanna the work in. I think coaching is absolutely brilliant, and I've definitely worked with coaches throughout my career, but coaches ask probing questions, help you unlock the answers within yourself, but they haven't got the experience to necessarily actually give you clear instruction or guide you. It's about unlocking the answers from within yourself, whereas that mentor can give you clear steer or advice and signposting, as well as asking the probing questions and helping you to work it out for yourself. So it's that important combination of support and expertise.
So probing plus that actual do this, go here, that specific guidance tailored around that mutual interest or expertise. Where coaching is more just, like you say, unlocking that thing inside of you.
They're not an expert in the field or
Okay, so I'm going to call your bluff here, because you also told us earlier that there's not very many podiatrists. So how do you get mentorship if
like you're the only podiatrist in the village who wants to do research. Like, what do you do in that case? What did you do?
Well, I mean, I was lucky that, my undergraduate lecturers saw for me where to get help and made the connections and encouraged me and gave advice and guidance. And I think everybody has graduated from somewhere, so everyone has a faculty that they can go back to and ask for advice and guidance. So that would be absolutely one recommendation. The other thing I would say is, we all have our communities of practice. And so the first thing is just speaking up and asking and saying, do you know, I think I could really do with a mentor right now. And putting it out there and talking to people. And then it's amazing what networks unfold. And the other thing is, of course, we operate in a multi-professional landscape. So I'm a podiatrist. I don't have to have a podiatrist mentor, and I've had lots of wonderful mentors who haven't been podiatrists, and I mentor people who aren't podiatrists. So I think there's something to be gained from. Yeah.
I think that's so key. I think especially for I think they want to call us HCPs now, healthcare professionals. We were NMAPs a year ago, but all of us out there who are clinically minded, who want to do research, who aren't medics.
Yeah.
And I think within those various professions, depending on that profession itself, I'm going to speak for nursing, the whole academic and research thing is definitely like, why would you do that? And it's this really hidden thing, even though it's like one of the biggest professions out there. And so for me, similar to like you're saying, like that multidisciplinary mentorship has opened incredible networks and incredible opportunities that I think if I would have stayed exclusive to nursing only would have never happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, when you start asking questions and when you perhaps are working with a mentor or you're thinking about mentorship, sometimes it's just reframing your perspective of how you see things. And this thing about it's not for me, which is where I was coming from, was the first thing that changed when working with a mentor. And this idea that research is for like the really brainy kids, or you've got to be really geeky to do research, or oh no, I'm no good at data, or I'm no good, like there's all these reasons that people come up with. Yeah, I'm no good with tech. All these reasons that we come up with as to why it might not be quite right for us. But actually, if you're a clinician out there, especially if you're working on the coal face, I bet you at some point in your day something will happen that will be really annoying to you, and you go, why are we doing it this way? This makes no sense. Or if only we could just fix this one thing. And actually, do you know what research is for? All the people that get a bit annoyed with those gripes and you just want to do something to fix it. And that to me is what research is. And that's how that early mentors helped me go, oh yeah, well, I could do that. Yeah, I definitely get annoyed quite a lot. I definitely can see things that we could be fixing. Yep, I've got some energy and motivation to try and change some of this. So, okay, yeah, then it is for me. I am a clinical academic. That's fine.
Oh my goodness, I absolutely love that definition of a clinical academic researcher. I so like, it needs to be on a t-shirt. Research is for clinicians who have a gripe.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, I love that. I love that. So talking about research then, you've really highlighted on how for you mentorship was really key early on in the stage to kind of like open this whole new world. You've talked about how mentorship also like really helped you reframe how you felt about your career. So then moving forward, how then did mentorship play a role within your own personal research and your current program of work at the long-term conditions theme in ARC Wessex?
It's it's played different roles
Okay.
throughout the journey. I think I had a wonderful mentor in Professor Nigel Ardern, who was based in Oxford, and was just the most brilliant epidemiologist and rheumatologist, and really role modelled how you can be these two things at once. And that really helped shape my thinking around areas of research, so the kind of methods and also the way that groups can work, with that Oxford group. And through him and through that guidance, I really could see how this is a functional group, and this is how people come together and share ideas and are energized by each other, and there's some excitement in what we're doing, and you couldn't help but in that moment be like, yes, I want to be in that club, that's amazing. So that really shaped for me that bridge around epidemiology and rheumatic and musculoskeletal disease, and that was very much the focus that I then kind of continued on in my research. Over time, I think there's been ups and downs with that. I think if anyone says it's all brilliant, they're probably lying. It's really challenging. And if you're trying to navigate it's like navigating two careers at once sometimes, clinical and research at the same time. And I had a brilliant mentor who was a much more senior clinical academic, who could give me some advice and guidance around strategy and how to cope with what felt like failure, and how to regroup, and if something's not working, how to let that go and approach it in a different way. And that was really, really valuable part of again the learning journey, I suppose. And I think that's the thing about mentors, isn't it, that it might change over time. The different career stages, you need different things. So early on, I really benefited from those mentors giving me confidence, opening the door, showing me the art of the possible, and setting me up and sending me off.
Showing me
that
the
was
art of the possible.
Yeah, they were amazing. In the middle, like later on, as a struggling postdoc, that mentor that could get to the nitty gritty of, this isn't working. Yeah, that's not right. How are you going to fix it? How are we going to change this? What are you going to do differently? A really different type of mentor, but exactly what I needed then. Yeah. And now, so I still have a mentor, and actually also I've reconnected with previous mentors sometimes in some ways, because it's much more it's now I deal with the challenge of being visionary and having a big picture and confidence to have a vision and some goals in a space where there is nobody who's really gone before, but also being strategic and having all of the same stuff around, but it's got to be doable, and bringing other people with you and being responsible for other people as well, and feeling the brilliance of that, but the pressure of that as well. So different demands at the moment. So that mentorship has changed.
Yeah, but I think if we go back to your definition of how, which I loved, is being those probing questions combined with a level of expertise to help you push your career and your research journey forward, then of course it would change. Because at the beginning you're like, how do you spell research?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then once you've learned how to spell it, then you're like, because I'm right now in the struggling postdoc phase.
Yeah,
so much fun. And I agree. Like I have multiple mentors, and I think like it's so important to have have a mentor in your world.
Absolutely.
Especially as you also very rightly said, this is not an easy journey. And even in the groups, like that group that you described that you got connected to in Oxford, where it's lovely and it's the cool kids group and everybody wants to be a part of it, it's still not easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to press pause on mentorship for a second because I realized at the beginning, although we described who you were, we launched so quickly into mentorship. Just tell us a little bit, because you've started to hint at it a bit. What is your area of research and your interest?
Good question. I mean, good question. Sometimes I ask myself that now. What is it that I actually do? So I am really, really interested and passionate about researching personalised care for people who are living with long-term conditions. And that can feel a little bit removed from that original world of epidemiology, from where I came from. But really, it kind of, for me, meshes together, and I think that's something that's quite exciting and unique about our research program, that we really need to understand public health and population level data to understand, you know, disease and risk factors of disease and modifiable targets, but they're not all biological. These things are knotty problems, they're biopsychosocial problems, and sometimes some of this stuff is also really better managed when we think about improving supported self-management, when we think about shared decision making, about how we have healthy conversations. And so I'm really interested in those areas of health.
Okay, another quick question. What is personalised care?
Oh, good question. So personalised care is about how we make sure that healthcare is tailored to meet an individual's needs. So it includes these domains of support for self-management, shared decision making, but it might be about activation, so readiness and ability to engage in health and healthcare. But all of those things have to be informed by an evidence base. So we need evidence of what we should be doing and how we should be doing it and how we tailor that to an individual. So it's going from epi, which is like global data sets, down to the person. And how do we get from there to there? Fascinates
well, that's
me.
what I was going to say. Is it sounds to me very interesting, but it's also like there's so much movement in loads of different conditions towards personalized medicine. And personalized care. And that's why I asked the definition of person-centered. But for me, being a research buff, my question is exactly like what you've just alluded to, is how do you, if you're going to do personalized care, person-centered care, or personalized medicine, how do you do research on that in order to say, okay, for everybody with fill in the blank condition, we need to do X. And the difference between those is not that. It's
vast.
It's vast.
Yeah, it is. And that's where there's other skills, isn't there, that we need then as that healthcare clinician. We need to be good at just actually listening. And that sounds really obvious, but in stretched healthcare systems where, you know, there's a lot of protocols, we're quite protocol driven. We like that in healthcare. It's really hard. Where do you stand as a clinician when somebody in front of you is saying, yeah, but that doesn't work for me. I don't want you to follow that protocol. Let's do something different. And how comfortable are we as clinicians to say, yeah, okay, maybe. I mean, in my world of podiatry, we have folks who perhaps have long-term ulceration. They are at immediate risk of perhaps amputation or loss of life. They're, you know, folks are quite unwell sometimes that we're dealing with, but they might be saying, do you know what? I know your protocol says I should come and see you this many times on these particular dates and we should be doing these things, but actually I just need a break from treatment, or I don't want to do that? Or do I really need those antibiotics right now? Can I make a judgment about whether I think something is infected, or does it have to come back to you? How do we share those decisions? How do we manage risk and support people to really engage in their care? It's a challenge, isn't it?
I agree, because I would say, like, how do you, with my own interest here, how do you combine that, which 100% is a morally outstanding principle to guide clinical practice? How do you make that interaction, you know, very focused on that individual, very focused on their wants, very focused on what matters to them? But at the same time, how do you then make sure that they don't feel abandoned because how our protocol driven system works means that if they don't come to an appointment, they might get discharged. It means that a clinician might end up in a different ethical dilemma of potentially not giving them guideline therapy. And it's like, it's a very delicate game.
Yeah, and if it goes wrong, who's to blame? I mean, we have a no blame culture, we say, but it's a really, you know, when you start scratching beneath the surface of this stuff, it's really difficult. And people want to ask then, and this is where the interface with epi comes in, because people go, well, hang on, what is the risk? What's the risk of treatment A versus treatment option B? And then we go, okay, we need some data to be able to tell you that. And that's where the epi comes in, and that's where we apply our, you know, epidemiological knowledge, where we apply our understanding of public health so that we can communicate in a better way to make individual level decisions. And it sounds so obvious, but actually the gulf between these things can be quite huge sometimes. And there's so much more research we need. There's so much more evidence we need to answer the questions for folks.
And I really think too, like, it's something that I've started from following my PhD, getting a lot more interested in, because being clinical, very clinical driven, and a lot of research is very clinically driven, and even qualitative research, it's all about those like experiences around a clinical condition, a treatment, or whatever. But something that has really opened my eyes recently, which connects into that personalized care, and that, for lack of a better word, I think at this time point, art of healthcare interaction, is actually trying to better understand that healthcare interaction, and that patient who wants help, and that clinician who's warring, and I use that word purposely, with the protocol driven complex healthcare system that, regardless of the country you're in, we all sit in. In order to find that healing pathway, even if you don't alter the disease, but that the patient can still experience a degree of healing around some of those other factors that illness puts on a person. I could talk to you about this all day.
I know. And there's so many examples, isn't there, of challenging areas that we could delve into, I'm sure.
Definitely. I'm going to switch back now, because otherwise we'll be here all day. So with that, I can totally now see how mentorship for you and your area of expertise, given that delicate balance between those two very different worlds, like massive population sets and N of 1 population set, how mentorship and having really strong networks around you would be really beneficial. I'm going to scale it back again and ask, for our listeners out there, how do you find a mentor, especially if you're the only fill in the blank clinical speciality in your hospital who is even interested in research? And maybe, bad case scenario, but I've heard about it a lot, so I'm going to be honest, you go to your manager and you say to your manager, I'd really like to get involved with research. And your manager goes, what?
Yeah.
Research? Yeah. We won't support a master, so you can't do research, you know, like, and not, so how do you, if you're out there at the early stage, how do you find somebody?
The first thing I would say is the people you need to connect with don't know you exist until you start making a bit of noise, like, until you start popping your head up and putting your hand up and saying, I really want to talk to somebody. The people that you want to connect with won't know that, so they can't reach out and connect with you however much they might like to. So the place to start is to just be brave. And this is the really awesome thing about research. I haven't met a researcher yet who doesn't want to talk about their research or share their enthusiasm in some way. So if there's a paper that you've read, if there is anything that you've come across that is connected in some way to the area that you want to start to be involved in, every paper will have the email address for the corresponding author. Email them. Just be brave and say, hi, this is me, I'm Linz. I don't even know how to start a conversation with you, but I would really love to have the chance to chat. And that's all you need to say. And then you've made your first connection, and that first connection will help you make the next connections and the next and the next and the next. And I've absolutely done that. And, you know, it feels really uncomfortable, but get past the uncomfortableness and reach out and contact people. So everybody can do that. You know, that's where to start. The lack of research or support in your own department, that's where you just need to get a little bit cunning. And this is where the reframing comes in, because, oh gosh, there's so many times where I've been in a particular clinical department or other, and I totally get that, you know, this is not a priority, we can't do this, blah, blah, blah. And I think what I've slowly learned over the years is sometimes you've got to cut your losses and move. At times. And I think
that.
No, I know, because people will say, you know, you'd expect me to say reframe it and say, well, what's this knotty problem? Let's try and fix this knotty problem. And you get research in by subterfuge. And of course, improvement methods are vast. Start with audits, do some service evaluations, build those into a program of quality improvement. Then you get to research, and you can grow an improvement culture that includes research. But actually, sometimes it might be easier to go, do you know what? I'm swimming against the tide, and the reality is I'm going to get exhausted and drown or wash away here. What I really need to do is get in a lifeboat and go somewhere else where there's other people swimming with me in the same direction. And then together you can go back and tackle some of those tricky environments. But when it's just you and you're right at the beginning, we do also have to face reality sometimes. I'm always like, yay, come on, champion. But there is a bit of being realistic.
Yeah.
And actually, good environments and good teams around you will mean you're infinitely more likely to be effective and make some meaningful changes that then can spread in other ways.
Oh, that is so powerful. Like, I love that analogy of like, stop trying to like push through the shore break. I mean, we're close to the sea here, so we talk in sea terms, and I love the sea. So, You need to stop trying to break through the shore break where your only progress is that you're drowning.
Yeah.
And you're getting bashed on the reef and bashed on the rocks. And grab a life raft, go out to sea, and then with the help and support and mentorship of other people, then you can learn to surf the wave in and avoid the shore break.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. Very cool. Very cool. Oh, I'm so glad. So I don't know if you know this or not. I can't remember if I told you in our email communications, but I'm so grateful. You were a recommendation from a previous guest.
Okay.
So you're here by popular demand.
Fantastic.
And I'm so grateful because although cards on the table, we're both technically in the long-term conditions theme, it's so big and has so many people, and because your focus is on a different sort of area, but I might be converting. Yay. It's been absolutely lovely to talk to you, to get your insights on mentorship, because it's definitely, I know for me, where I'm at, it's given me a bit of like, oh, I'm not the only one.
It is. I guess the other thing to add is that there are schemes out there as well. You know, there are formal mentorship schemes that exist, and, you know, not in every country, but, you know, there's many schemes for Welcome International members and fellows, students as well. So definitely, you know, if you're a member of a professional body, ask them if they have a mentorship scheme running. And if they don't, why not? Can they set one up? Because they should. And if you're part of a you know, professional body, set one up. It's really valuable. And there are clinical groups, you know, there are lots of different formal schemes as well. So if you're really struggling to think, I can't make that first step of reaching out to somebody, then think about applying onto a formal scheme as well.
I totally agree. And I think especially at the minute, the powers that be, the government and leaders of the university, like, so HEE, so higher education institution for everybody who's not in the UK, and NHS England and the NIHR are really starting to push for these non-medic researchers. And I think, like, it's one of the many reasons why I've started this podcast, is I know how hard it can be as a clinician to find somebody that you feel you can connect to without, like, so for me, the thought of reaching out to the corresponding author, I'm like,
yeah,
as if I'd ever do that. But what I did instead is I started getting connected through, like, my professional associations and asking the questions there. So I took it, and now, like, I don't even think twice about reaching out to a corresponding author.
Yeah.
But I think there are multiple ways to skin the cat, and there are professional supported programs out there. And so I think, you know, whoever you are out there, if you're thinking about research, you know, just dive in.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll be grand. You might get bashed in the shore break a little bit, but it'll make you a stronger swimmer.
Well, the thing is, as well, sometimes, you know, we think, oh, they seem really scary because they might appear to us successful by whatever definition of success we have. You know, they're awesome in some ways. I guarantee you those people would have failed just as many times as they'll have achieved something, because that's the nature of research. You know, for every grant we submit, there's one that doesn't get funded, probably more that don't get funded. And, you know, I think that's something that maybe we don't always share, you know, the fact that it's you know, we've just had a paper accepted. It's probably taken about 18 months to get that paper over the line and accepted. And you don't see the stuff that happens behind, because nobody tweets going, we tweet saying, yeah, look at our new paper. What we don't tweet is the, oh my god, we're in month 12 and we've got more reviewer comments, and
the reviewer obviously doesn't know how to read because Yeah, no, I'm with
Clearly
you.
our work is amazing. But I think that's where the mentor as well can help just buffer some of that and go, no, like in reality, actually, we're all human. We're all just trying to do our best here. And I think that's the thing, you know, when you think things are really scary or approaching a mentor could be hard, just remember we're all human. We've all started somewhere. We've all failed at something.
Well, I think, and this is based on people I've talked to, I think actually clinicians who to one degree or another convert to researchers, I think they struggle a lot more with the failure journey than anybody else, because I think as clinicians, we are trained and we see that if we fail or make errors, people get hurt, people die. And that shifting in perspective to, I've started to embrace research as much more an entrepreneurial model. So rather than a healthcare model, I see it as an entrepreneurial model. And you do a pitch and it gets accepted, great, or it gets rejected. Well, maybe they weren't cool enough for you. You rejig it.
Maybe
you pitch it again.
Not the right time. Yeah.
But
that's what an experiment is, isn't it? If you know the answer, it's not an experiment, and that's what research is.
Exactly.
It's many different forms, experimenting, trying things out, see if we can just incrementally make improvements.
And the only way to experiment is you have to embrace the fact that your career is likely going to have a longer catalogue of failures than successes.
Yep. Learning opportunities, we'll call them.
One of my mentors, he told me this, and I just absolutely loved it. Like he actually said that his belief about success around his research is that he will consider him successful if most of his work gets proven wrong.
Oh, brilliant.
Isn't that fascinating? Because he's constantly in that pursuit of getting closer and closer and closer to better knowledge, more information. And so actually success means you're getting stuff out there, you're trying, you have failures, but your failures and what you publish, or even your successes, encourage more people to go down that pathway, and then they learn a little bit more and they learn a little bit more. And I absolutely, like, I love that. Anyway, conscious of the time, we are almost out of time here. So very, very quickly, any last words of wisdom around mentorship, or do we think we've covered it all?
I mean, I think we've been quite clear, haven't we? Having a mentor is really important. It's really awesome, and a mentor can come from anywhere and potentially be anyone. And a mentor different mentors at different times, they come and go, but it starts with just being really brave and reaching out and starting a conversation, and everything else flows after that.
Oh, that's perfect, Lindsey. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your wisdom with us. For everybody out there, as you probably are getting used to now with our episodes, in the description, I will leave more details about Lindsey, where you can find her, how to find her out on social media, some of her publications, things like that. So if you want to reach out to her, if you're a podiatrist out there, you'll be able to find her and get in touch. Thank you again so much for Lindsey for coming on and taking the time out of your likely very busy day. No, my pleasure. I do this podcast in sort of like my own time and free time, and it's honestly the best thing I've ever done. I find it so much fun and so inspiring, and the idea of sharing these conversations just for the whole world to dive into just makes me so excited, because I think it just helps all those people out there who might be thinking, well, should I? Oh, there's nobody. That there'll be a bit of a catalogue of all of these different people from different walks of life that are doing research. Anyway,
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. And I have no doubt I'll run into you at some point in the future.
Yes.
Research is a very small world.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for
Thank
listening,
you.
everybody. Bye.
Don't go away. Up next, we have the top 3 takeaways from this week's podcast by Dr. Rosalynn Austin. What a great conversation. Lindsey was amazing, wasn't she? Thank you to everybody who recommended her to come on the podcast to share her experiences around mentorship. You were 100% right. She was really, really great. My top 3 takeaways from our conversation around mentorship. I loved her definition of it, and it was a unique definition that I'd not heard before. That mentorship is the combination of asking probing questions together with that individual leading those questions, having the expertise to actually offer you advice and guidance along your journey. And I loved that because it's like she said, and I loved how she said it. It's mentorship is that art of showing you what and how is possible within your career as a clinical academic researcher. So loved that. The second thing that I really enjoyed about her conversation is, she was alone. There's not many podiatrists in the world, and there's even fewer doing research. And so she's gathered around her a real interdisciplinary team that offer her mentorship. And that was people from epidemiologists to medical people to other nurses and other researchers. And I think that's such a brilliant way of looking at it. And it's like she said, it actually might be seen as an advantage because it will give you a wider scope. It will give you different perspectives that will then shape how both you see your career pathway as well as you see potential answers to your research questions. So I found that really, really fascinating. And then the third thing that is becoming a theme on this podcast is being brave. If you're out there and you're a clinician and you're interested in research, but you are the only fill in the blank clinician who is interested in research within your department, be brave. Go to your association, go to your research department in your trust, go to, like Lindsey suggested, go to an author of a paper that you really liked and hunt them down and reach out to them, or even look up some of the guests in the podcast. Everybody who's involved in research becomes so passionate about it and recognizes how key it is that we actually add more people to the band of researchers, especially around healthcare, because it's such a complex issue. Then the better that we'll be able to change things, the more we'll be able to get more knowledge. And so in general, we're very happy to talk to people who are interested. So just be brave, send that private message on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever, or send that email, and come do research. So those are my 3 main takeaways from our conversation with Lindsey. I really hoped you enjoyed this conversation. I know I enjoyed listening to it and creating it for you. Don't forget, it's really important that you like, comment, and subscribe on these podcasts, either on YouTube or on your podcasting platform of choice. Excellent news. I have finally managed to get it available on Apple Podcasts. So everybody out there, you should now be able to find it pretty easily. So thanks so much for listening. And as I said during the podcast, I will leave in the description how you can find Lindsey, read more about her research and the different places that she's connected to. And I will see you again soon. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.